The ship called Horizon's Edge moved slowly through the purple clouds of Prime. Captain Park stood at the window of his cabin and watched the alien world grow larger. He had never seen anything so beautiful in his life. The planet was covered in crystals that caught the light of 3 suns and threw rainbows across the sky. "We are ready, Captain," said a voice behind him. Turned to see Doctor standing in the doorway. She was a small woman with calm eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. She carried a tablet under her arm and wore the blue uniform of Earth's Science Division. "How do I look?" asked. He pulled at his collar. The formal uniform was tight and uncomfortable. "Like a man about to make history," said with a small smile, "or a man about to be sick." "Maybe both," admitted. They walked together through the ship's corridors. The crew members they passed stood and saluted. Everyone knew what today meant. After 200 years of wondering if they were alone in the universe, humans had finally found the answer. They were not alone, and today they would meet the galaxy's rulers face to face. The shuttle took them down through the crystal clouds, watched through the small window as the capital city of the Galactic Concord appeared below. The buildings were tall and twisted like frozen flames. Flying vehicles moved between them like schools of fish. Everything seemed to glow with soft light. 412 species, said quietly, 60,000 years of peace, and we are the newcomers. "We will make a good impression," said. He wished he believed it. The council chamber was the largest room had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform, and in those seats sat creatures of every shape and size. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no bodies at all and existed as floating lights. All of them were watching the 2 humans walk to the center of the room. Felt very small. A tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms stood at a podium above them. This was High Arbiter of the Dominion, the current leader of the Galactic Council. His voice filled the chamber without any visible speakers. "Humans of Earth," said, "you have traveled far to stand before us. The Conquered welcomes all who seek peace. Tell us of your world, tell us of your people, tell us of your technology." Cleared his throat. He had practiced this speech 100 times. "Thank you, High Arbiter. Humanity is honored to meet the Galactic Conquered. We come in peace and friendship. We hope to learn from your great civilization and to share what we have learned in return." He pressed a button on his tablet and a hologram appeared in the air above him. It showed Earth's greatest achievements: the first moon landing, the first Mars colony, the first faster-than-light engine, and then the image that would change everything, a human warship firing its main weapon. "Our primary defensive technology," explained, "is the electromagnetic. It uses magnetic fields to accelerate metal projectiles to extreme speeds. A single shot can." He stopped. A strange sound was filling the chamber. It took him a moment to realize what it was. Laughter. Thousands of aliens were laughing at him. High Arbiter raised one of his 4 hands and the laughter slowly died down, but he was smiling too. "Forgive us, human, we do not mean to offend, but you must understand, we abandoned kinetic weapons 50,000 years ago. They are, how do I say this kindly, primitive." A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke next. "We use plasma manipulation. Our shields can stop any energy beam." A being made of living stone added, "We bend gravity itself. We can crush enemy ships without touching them." "We have psionic dampening fields," said another. "We can shut down enemy mines from 1,000 kilometers away." Nodded at each speaker. "You see, humans, the galaxy has moved beyond throwing rocks at each other. We are a civilization of energy and thought. You're interesting, as a historical curiosity." Felt his face grow hot. Beside him, his expression did not change, but he could see her hands tighten on her tablet. "We appreciate your honesty," said carefully. "We have much to learn." The council voted quickly. Humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Concord. They were given territory in the outer spiral arm, far from the trade routes and the rich resource systems, far from anything that mattered. As they walked back to their shuttle, finally spoke, "They think we are children." "They think we are less than children," said. "They think we are insects." "They are wrong." Looked at his companion. There was something in her eyes he had not seen before, not anger, something colder, something patient. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Did not answer right away. She looked up at the crystal sky of Prime, at the 3 suns that hung there like jewels. "I am thinking," she said slowly, "that they have been doing things the same way for 60,000 years. They have forgotten how to be surprised. They have forgotten that sometimes the simple way is the right way. And I am thinking that we have much work to do." She turned to face him. "They laughed at our today. Someday they will not be laughing." Nodded slowly. He did not know what the future would bring, but as he boarded the shuttle and left Prime behind, he made himself a promise. Humanity would return to this chamber, and when they did, no one would be laughing. The stars waited, and humanity was patient. 3 years passed. Humanity built quietly in the outer spiral. They traded with whoever would trade with them. They studied every piece of alien technology they could find, and they waited. Lieutenant Commander stood on the bridge of the patrol ship Iron Resolve and watched the stars. He was a tall man with a scar across his chin from a training accident years ago. His crew called him Stone Face because he rarely smiled. But he was a good officer, and his people trusted him. "Quiet night," said Ensign Han from her station. She was the youngest officer on the bridge, barely 22 years old, with quick eyes and quicker fingers on her console. "Too quiet," said. He had learned to trust his instincts, and right now his instincts were screaming. The alarm came 30 seconds later. Commander's voice was sharp. Multiple contacts dropping out of faster than light, big ones, very big ones. Moved to her station and looked at the screen. His blood went cold. "That is not possible," he whispered. But it was. The ships appearing on the screen were not from any conquered species. They were black and twisted, covered in spines like dead trees. There were hundreds of them, thousands. The said her face had gone pale. The old reports said they were gone, destroyed. The old reports were wrong. Hit the communication button. All hands to battle stations. Send a priority message to Earth Command and to the Galactic Council. The collective has returned. Over the next 3 weeks, the galaxy learned what fear truly meant. They had been expelled from the conquered centuries ago for their cruelty. They conquered planets not for resources but for pleasure. They enjoyed suffering. The conquered had driven them out to the empty space between galaxies, and everyone had believed they would die there. Instead, they had grown stronger. Their ships phased through plasma shields like ghosts. Their weapons overloaded gravity wells and turned them into bombs. The psionic dampening fields that the conquered was so proud of did nothing against creatures who felt no fear and had no minds to shut down. 3 core worlds fell in 2 weeks, billions died. And his crew survived the first attacks only because they were too small to notice. They joined a refugee convoy fleeing toward the inner systems, protecting transport ships filled with families from a dozen different species. Then they caught up with them at Outpost Kappa 7. 63 enemy ships, reported. Her voice was steady but could see her hands shaking. "Our defensive fleet has been destroyed. We are all that remains." Looked at the tactical display. 12 human ships, 63 warships, and behind them transport vessels carrying 2.3 million civilians. "We cannot win this," his executive officer said quietly. "No," agreed, "but we can make them pay." The communication screen flickered, and a familiar face appeared. Captain Park, now commanding the destroyer Unyielding, looked older than remembered. There were new lines around his eyes and gray in his hair. All human vessels, said, form up on my position. We are going to do something the conquered forgot how to do. What is that, sir? Asked. Smiled, it was not a pleasant smile. We are going to throw rocks. The human ships moved into formation. They were small and ugly compared to the elegant conquered vessels. They had sharp angles and exposed weapon ports. They looked like tools, not artwork. The fleet approached confidently. They had destroyed the best the conquered had to offer. What could 12 primitive human ships do? Charge the rails, ordered. Deep inside each human ship, massive electromagnetic coils began to hum. Tungsten rods the size of cars slid into firing chambers. Power built until the ships themselves seemed to vibrate with it. Fire. The smoke. 12 ships fired together, sending tungsten rods screaming through space at 8% of the speed of light. The phase shields, designed to let energy pass through harmlessly, offered no resistance at all. The rods punched through shields, through armor, through everything. The first ship did not explode. It simply came apart, torn into pieces by the sheer force of the impact. Then the second, then the third. Stared at her screen. Direct hits on 7 targets, all destroyed. Reload, commanded, fire at will. The battle lasted 47 minutes. They tried to adapt. They changed formations, tried to spread out, tried to close the distance. But the human ships were fast and coordinated, and their weapons did not care about shields or phase technology. When it was over, 63 ships had been reduced to floating debris. The humans had lost 2 vessels, their crews dying to protect strangers they had never met. Stood on his bridge and looked at the wreckage. His hands were shaking now too. Commander, said softly, the refugee convoy is sending a message. She put it on the main screen. Saw faces of every kind, scaled, furred, feathered, crystalline. All of them were crying. Thank you, they said. Thank you, thank you. An hour later, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. High Arbiter himself had sent it. We have received reports of your battle, the message said. The arrogance was gone from his voice. He sounded tired and afraid. We do not understand how you did what you did, but we are asking, no, we are begging for your help. They are coming for Prime, please, we need you. Read the message twice, then he looked at his crew. Well, he said, it seems the galaxy has remembered that we exist. For the first time in 3 years, he smiled. The news of the Battle of Kappa 7 spread across the galaxy like fire. Everyone heard the story. 12 small human ships had destroyed 63 warships, the same warships that had torn through the Conquered's best fleets like paper. Suddenly, the species that threw rocks did not seem so funny anymore. Admiral arrived at Prime 2 weeks later with a fleet of 50 human warships. She was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 40 years in Earth's military, and she had never lost a battle. The Galactic Council met her in the same chamber where had been laughed at 3 years before. This time, no one was laughing. Admiral, High Arbiter said. He bowed his silver head, something he had never done for a human before. We are grateful you have come. Please explain to us. How did your ships do what they did? Stood at the center of the chamber and looked up at the thousands of alien faces watching her. She took her time before speaking. For 60,000 years, she said, you have been fighting wars with energy, plasma beams, gravity wells, psionic attacks. Each time someone built a new weapon, someone else built a shield against it. You have been playing the same game over and over. She pressed a button and a hologram appeared. It showed a simple tungsten rod. We did not play your game. We asked a different question. You asked, how do we make our energy weapons stronger? We asked, what happens if we throw a piece of metal really, really fast? A creature that looked like a giant insect raised one of its arms. But kinetic weapons are inefficient. The energy required to accelerate solid matter to useful speeds is enormous. Yes, agreed. It is. We do not care. We have power to spare. And your shields, your beautiful energy shields that stop plasma and bend gravity, they do nothing against a chunk of tungsten moving at 8% of light speed. She smiled. It was a cold smile. You built walls of light, she said. We built hammers. The chamber was silent. Then Doctor stepped forward. She had been standing quietly beside the Admiral, but now she moved to the center of the room. "They are not our only surprise," she said. She pressed another button. A new hologram appeared. It showed something that made every alien in the chamber gasp. A teleportation device. "We have studied your cargo," explained. "We know you use them to move supplies between ships. We also know you stopped trying to teleport living creatures 40,000 years ago because of problems." "The biological instability," said. "Organic matter cannot survive the transport process. The quantum states collapse. We lost thousands of test subjects before we gave up." "You gave up," said. "We did not." She pulled up data on the hologram. Charts, graphs, equations that even the most advanced species in the room struggled to follow. "You tried to move the body," she said. "You tried to keep every atom in exactly the right place during transport. That is impossible. The universe does not allow it." "Then how?" The question came from a dozen voices at once. "We do not move the body," said. "We move the information. Complete molecular breakdown at the origin point. Data transmission, reconstruction at the destination using local matter." She paused to let that sink in. "You tried to carry a glass of water across a room without spilling a drop. We just memorized the shape of the water and poured a new glass on the other side." The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens were shouting questions, arguing with each other, demanding proof. Had to raise all four of his arms to restore order. "You are saying," he said slowly, "that you can teleport living creatures, safely." "We have been doing it for 6 months, confirmed. Thousands of successful transports, no failures." "But the philosophical implications," another alien began. "Are not my concern," interrupted. "I am a scientist, not a philosopher. The technology works. That is what matters." Stepped forward again. "Do you understand what we are offering? We can put soldiers anywhere, on any ship, on any planet, instantly. Combined with our technology, we can take this war to thee in ways they cannot predict or defend against." Stood very still for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was heavy with something that might have been shame. "We laughed at you," he said. 3 years ago in this very room we laughed at you. We called you primitive. We sent you to the outer spiral like unwanted children." "Yes," said, "you did." "How did you do this? How did you solve in 3 years what we could not solve in 40,000? Looked at him, and her expression softened just slightly. "Because we never assumed it was impossible," she said. "You are an old civilization. You have rules and traditions and things that everyone knows cannot be done. We are young. We are stupid. We do not know what is impossible yet." She gestured at. She did not know that biological teleportation was impossible, so she just kept trying until she found a way. That is the human way. We do not give up. We do not accept limits. We just keep throwing ourselves at the problem until it breaks. Was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "What do you want from us?" "We want to help," said, "but we want something in return, respect, real membership in the conquered, a voice in the council. We are not asking to rule. We are asking to be treated as equals." The vote was held immediately. It was unanimous. Humanity was no longer the laughingstock of the galaxy. They were its last hope. They came for Prime on a day when all 3 suns were shining. Commander stood on a hill overlooking the Crystal City and watched the sky turn dark with enemy ships. She was a small woman with strong arms and a voice that could carry across a battlefield. Her soldiers called her the Wall because nothing could move her once she decided to hold a position. "How many?" asked her second-in-command, a named. He had silver scales-like and 4 arms that each held a different weapon. 800 ships, said. "Maybe more and ground forces, lots of ground forces." "Can we hold?" Smiled, "We are going to find out." Her army was something new in the galaxy, 12 species fighting together under human command. They had trained for 6 months using human tactics, flexibility, adaptation, surprise. They did not stand in neat lines and wait for the enemy like conquered soldiers had always done. They moved. They hid. They attacked from unexpected directions. In orbit, Captain looked at his tactical display and felt his stomach tighten. 200 Allied ships faced a fleet 4 times their size. "They have adapted," his sensor officer reported. "New shield configuration. Our standard rounds will not punch through as easily." Nodded, they had expected this. Switched to burst fire. 3 rounds per target, staggered timing, overwhelmed their shields. "That will use ammunition faster." "Then we better not miss." The battle began. They came in fast and hard, their black ships screaming through space like angry insects. Plasma beams and gravity weapons filled the void with deadly light. The Allied fleet spread out, using the same dispersed formation that had worked at Kappa 7. The first volley of fire caught the off guard. Their new shields held against single impacts, but not against 3 rounds hitting the same spot in rapid succession. 12 ships died in the opening seconds. But this time they had a counter. Small, fast attack ships poured from the larger vessels, thousands of them. They were too quick to track and too small to waste rounds on. They swarmed the Allied fleet, attaching to hulls and drilling through armor. "We are losing ships," the executive officer reported. "The swarmers are cutting through our hull." "Signal the Marine teams," ordered. "It is time." Deep in the Allied fleet, special units waited in teleportation chambers. Sergeant First Class Moon checked his weapon one last time and looked at his squad. 10 soldiers, human and alien alike, all wearing the same black armor. "Remember the plan," said. "We teleport in, plant the charges, get out. 30 seconds, no more." "What if we run into resistance?" asked the young soldier. Smiled, "Then we make it fast resistance." The hummed, the world dissolved into white light. Once vision cleared, he was standing in the engine room of a command ship. The space was huge and dark, filled with machines that pulsed with red light. The air smelled like burning metal. "Move," he ordered. They had studied the ship designs for weeks, stolen from old conquered records. They knew exactly where to go and what to do. Each soldier carried a special device, a modified round that stored kinetic energy and released it on a timer. Placed his charge on the main reactor, 15 seconds. A guard appeared around a corner. It was tall and thin, with too many joints in its arms and a face that was mostly teeth. It screamed something in a language did not understand. He shot it before it finished screaming. 10 seconds. More guards were coming, could hear them moving through the ship. 5 seconds, everyone to extraction point. They ran. The chamber was 50 meters away, 40, 30. Now, white light. The smell of burning metal disappeared, replaced by the clean air of their own ship. 3 seconds later, the command vessel collapsed in on itself. The kinetic charge did not explode outward. It released all its energy inward, crushing the reactor core into a space the size of a fist. The ship crumpled like a ball of paper. Across the battle, 16 other teams did the same thing. 17 capital ships died in less than 3 minutes, killed from the inside. The fleet, suddenly leaderless, began to break apart. Ships that had been coordinating perfectly now flew in confused patterns. The Allied fleet showed no mercy. On the ground, watched the burning debris fall from the sky like shooting stars. "They are retreating," said. He sounded like he could not believe it. "They are retreating." Not retreating, said, running. The ground battle was over by dawn. The landing forces, cut off from orbital support, fought hard but could not adapt to enemies who would not stand still. This mixed species army moved like water, flowing around strong points and striking weak ones. When the last soldier fell, stood in the ruins of what had been a beautiful crystal plaza. Her armor was dented and covered in dust. She had a cut on her forehead that was dripping blood into her eye. She did not care. "Commander," one of her soldiers called out, "there are civilians coming out. They want to thank us." Looked up. Thousands of citizens were emerging from shelters, their crystalline bodies catching the light of the rising suns. They were crying and laughing and reaching out to touch the soldiers who had saved them. A small child, no bigger than his hand and made of living crystal, ran up and hugged her leg. "Thank you," the child said. "Thank you for saving us." Picked up the child gently. She looked at the sky, where human ships were hunting down the last of the fleet. "You are welcome," she said. "That is what we do." The war was over. The galaxy was saved. And everything was about to change. 1 year after the Battle of, the galaxy was a different place. Ambassador Park walked through the corridors of the Galactic Council building. He had retired from military service after the war, trading his captain's uniform for the formal robes of a diplomat. His hair was fully gray now, and he walked with a slight limp from an injury he had taken during the final battle. But his eyes were still sharp, and his voice still carried weight. The aliens he passed in the hallway bowed to him, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Humanity had earned their respect the hard way. Doctor walked beside him, now holding the title of Permanent Scientific Liaison to the Galactic Concord. Her teleportation technology had changed everything. Medicine, construction, transportation, every part of galactic civilization was being transformed by the ability to move matter instantly across any distance. "Are you nervous?" she asked. "A little," admitted. "The last time I stood in that chamber they laughed at me." "They will not laugh today." The council chamber was full. Every species in the Concord had sent representatives. Cameras broadcast the event to trillions of beings across the galaxy. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. High Arbiter stood at his podium. He looked older than remembered. The war had aged everyone. Ambassador Park said, "Please speak." Walked to the center of the chamber. He looked up at the thousands of faces watching him, faces of every shape, every color, every form of life imaginable. He took a deep breath. "4 years ago," he began, "I stood in this exact spot. I showed you our technology hour and you laughed. You called us primitive. You sent us to the edge of space where we would not bother anyone." The chamber was silent. "You were not wrong to laugh. By your standards, we were primitive. We are still primitive in many ways. We are young. We are reckless. We make mistakes that your species stopped making thousands of years ago." He paused. "But we also do things that you have forgotten how to do. We try things that you decided were impossible. We fail, and we try again. We never stop believing that there is a better way." He gestured too. "This woman solved biological teleportation in 3 years. Your scientists spent 40,000 years on the same problem and gave up. Why? Because everyone knew it was impossible. She did not know that, so she just kept working." Nodded but did not speak. This was moment. "For 60,000 years," continued, "you built a civilization on the assumption that sophistication equals superiority. You forgot that evolution does not care about elegance. It cares about survival. Sometimes the best solution is not the most advanced one. It is the one that works." He spread his arms wide. "We did not come here to replace you. We did not come to rule over you. We came to remind you of something you had forgotten, something important." "What is that?" asked. "That the universe is full of problems that have not been solved yet. And every time you say something is impossible, you close a door that might lead to the answer. Lowered his arms. I am here to propose something new, not a change in leadership, not a change in rules, a change in thinking. I am calling it the human doctrine. The chamber stirred, explained. The human doctrine has 3 principles. First, no problem is ever truly solved. There is always a better way. Second, failure is not an ending. It is a step toward success. Third, the simple answer and the complex answer both deserve consideration. Sometimes the rock is better than the laser. He smiled. I am not asking you to become human. I am asking you to remember what it was like before you decided you knew everything. I am asking you to be curious again. The vote took less than an hour. It was unanimous. The Galactic Concord officially adopted the human doctrine. Schools across the galaxy began teaching the 3 principles. Scientists reopened research projects that had been abandoned centuries ago. For the first time in thousands of years, the old species of the Concord began to innovate again. In the outer spiral, where humanity had once been exiled, new shipyards hummed with activity. Captain Han, no longer an ensign, no longer young, stood on an observation platform and watched the construction. The new class is almost ready, said her executive officer. What are we calling them? Thought about everything that had happened. She thought about Kappa 7, about all the battles in between. She thought about the millions who had died and the billions who had been saved. She thought about a young woman standing on a bridge, watching impossible things happen, and deciding that maybe impossible did not mean anything at all. Persistence class, she said. We are calling them persistence class. Why that name? Because that is what got us here. We just refused to quit. On Prime, Admiral gave her final interview. She was 117 years old, held together by medicine and stubbornness, and the same fire that had burned in her eyes 50 years before. Everyone focuses on the interviewer said, the technology. They are missing the point, said. What is the point? Smiled. It was the same cold smile she had shown the council all those years ago, but warmer now, softer. It was never about it was about the willingness to try. The Concord had everything they needed to solve their problems. They just stopped believing new solutions were possible. She looked at the camera, at the trillions watching across the galaxy. Humans never stopped believing. We looked at the impossible and said, maybe, let us see, let us try. Her voice grew stronger. That is our real weapon, not tungsten rods, not hope, stubbornness, the refusal to accept that today is as good as it gets. She leaned back in her chair. And that, she said, is something no species can ever take from us. Outside her window, ships flew across the crystal sky of Prime. Human ships, alien ships, ships carrying people who had once been enemies and were now friends. The galaxy was different now. It was harder and softer at the same time. It had learned to fight and to hope. It had learned that the species who threw rocks might just be the ones to save everyone. And somewhere in the outer spiral, a new ship named Persistence began its maiden voyage into the unknown, carrying a crew that believed, truly believed, that nothing was impossible. They were right.